Hey guys, this is StrifeCro. I'm here today to talk about set rotation and what I think of it. Obviously, as everyone knows, Blizzard's announced the new set rotation, which is basically them taking out GVG and Nax first, but eventually they're going to keep basic and standard the same, or as like kind of an evergreen part of it, and everything else will start rotating out as the years goes by. Every year the old sets will be gone, new sets will be in standard. Anyways, I don't want to talk too much more about like how it is. You can always, I'm sure you guys know what set rotation is by now. My thoughts on it: I generally like the set rotation idea a lot and agree with the changes that have to be made for the game in order to prosper in the long term. Reasons: basically, as more cards get added to the card pool, the power level of the decks get stronger and stronger. And why is that a problem? Ultimately, I feel that Hearthstone is kind of like a toy type game compared to like, say, like a storytelling type of game. Maybe like something like Final Fantasy is more of a story type telling game, but Hearthstone's like a Rubik's Cube. It's like a kind of like a toy to tinker with, a very complicated Rubik's Cube. That's why we play Hearthstone. It's not really for the story. It's kind of to tinker with it. And I feel like there's two parts of gameplay of Hearthstone. One is technical play during the game, what moves you make, what mulligans, etc. The other part is deck building. Deck building is what I want to talk about. Deck building is less accessible and less fun when the card pool keeps growing. If we have thousands of cards in the future, it becomes harder to create decks. It just gets less likely that people enjoy this part of it. Reason is that set rotation helps is that it creates a stop to the power creep of constructed. With a bigger card pool, power creep as far as decks goes is inevitable. Even if each card isn't necessarily stronger or better, the cards themselves will get stronger because of, we have a bigger pool, can't get weaker. The top decks can only get better. They have more synergy even if each card isn't stronger. When the decks get too strong, as we currently see at the end of this format, this is basically what I feel is probably going to be the strongest that standard will ever be, likely. I mean, I'm assuming that this right now is just standard, even though technically it's wild, but for the point being that this is a competitive format, it's the strongest it'll ever be, and deck building and brewing becomes more and more frustrating. This is not really a concern that it's like only I've had. I talked to Sweets today about it. He felt the exact same way about deck building. We need to be given at least the illusion that our homebrews can be competitive. And right now with Druid, Secret Pally, Reno Lock, we can't even kid ourselves anymore. It's like, if our homebrews are 90% of the top deck strengths, we can still have a lot of fun. I guess, I don't know if you guys realize, so I used to stream many more decks in some ways, and I had a lot better time. Now it feels like, most of our homebrewers are at 50% of the top deck strength, and I feel like it's extremely bad for the game. What does it say when like a non-Reno Handlock and Face Hunter isn't even competitive anymore for the sake of power creep? So why is Wild good? I'm going to talk some about, instead of standard now, I'm talking about Wild. We talk about deck building, why and how it's an important part of gameplay. I feel like Wild is good because there's always going to clearly be a legacy format, regardless of whether or not even Blitzer supports it. We also need to use all our cards to play against friends. Sometimes just kind of like for a sandbox type thing. If the cards themselves are to feel tangible, which is what they want for the game, we need to be able to use the cards. So Wild's good for deck building because if Standard's going to be a competitive format, I feel like less testing and neck decking will be going on in Wild, which is ultimately going to be a more broken format no matter how hard they try to balance it. Especially with the era of streaming, we all lose some fun part of the game, which is building decks. As the information gets more accessible, I feel like it definitely kills some of the fun there. So I think a smaller player base would be good for Wild, just because it opens up for a lot more potentially creative things. If the format is not necessarily the tournament format, the competitive format, there's going to be less testing going on. It just lets more individuals shine playing Wild, since it's like more Wild format. So yeah, that's why I think Wild is going to be pretty cool, even as the non-competitive format, just because we have a lot more room. You know, if our homebrews are at like 90% of the top deck strengths, the net deck strengths instead of 50%, it just feels like we can still have fun playing it, even if we don't win necessarily as much. If it's close enough, it's fine for people. You know, everyone, there's always slightly weaker decks and slightly stronger decks, as long as it's kind of there. You know, right now it just doesn't feel like that at all. I would prefer if we don't really have this classic basic set that sticks around forever, but instead maybe reprint some of the cards, or even better than reprinting the cards, reprint similar cards like Forgotten Torch instead of Firewall Frostbolt, Darnassus Asper instead of Wall Growth. You know, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but if we want to keep some of the class identity of the classes, we could, you know, we could still have new cards that are similar, right, with Aspirant instead of Wall Growth and things like that. I feel like it keeps Standard more fresh to have slightly different cards without having a fallback set at all times like the basic classic is now. But, you know, with all the negative feedback going around of people not wanting to lose your cards for Standard, I can definitely see why having a core set that's always in the game happened as it did. It must have been something that's definitely was predicted by the Blizzard. But I strongly feel that they do want to nerf some classic basic cards. Druid combo and Giants are personally the worst offenders in my perspective. I feel like those are always going to be really stifling to the format. If those are the strongest things you can do, Druid combo and just Mountain and Molten Giants are always like keeping some of the meta in check, and that's not necessarily a good thing with how it's done. So like with what those decks do to it. All right, well, that's my video. Thanks for watching, guys.